You're listening to Becoming More Me, the podcast for ADHD entrepreneurs and professionals who want to be more and do less. I'm your host, Teresa Lear Levine. I'm an EFT master practitioner and hypnotherapist who absolutely loves helping people get present on this never-ending journey of becoming. And I'm really excited because today's guest was on the show a couple of years ago, and I love the work that she does, and I'm really excited to have another conversation with her because she's just published her second book called Marinating in Chaos, and I can't wait for you to hear about it. So my guest today is Megan Swan, and she is a wellness coach. She's a consultant. Like I said before, she's the author of several amazing books, and she's dedicated to helping female founders, especially female founders in tech, which is really cool, and also in modern companies, to integrate wellness into daily life and business. She has well over a decade of experience, and she specialized in these personalized, sustainable strategies that boost energy, focus, and confidence so that we don't burn out doing these purposeful things in our lives, right? And Megan's less is more philosophy is one that empowers clients to make simple, lasting shifts for better productivity and overall well-being. As the author of Marinating in Chaos and the host of her own wellness-focused podcast, she's such an inspiration to others to prioritize health as foundation for success. And I love that. It's just another way that we are getting away from the hustle and strive culture and stepping into pleasure-fueled business and success. So I'm excited to dive into this conversation, and we're going to talk about a whole range of things, from our relationship with self, our relationship with kale, our relationship with our partners, our relationship with sleep, and food and alcohol. So much more. There's so much to talk about, and it all starts now. Hey, Megan, thanks so much for joining me again today.
Thanks, Teresa. It's so good to see you. I feel like it's been a while.
It has, it has. And I know we had an episode a while back, and so much has changed, and you've just released another book, and there's all of these advances that we've both been making in our lives and businesses. So I'm really looking forward to catching up on that today. And I would love it if you could start by just refreshing us on who you are, what you enjoy doing in this world outside of your work, maybe hobbies, family stuff, where you live. Tell us about you.
Yeah, well, I am a wellness coach and consultant of 15 years in the industry, and we can dive into sort of the layers of that. But I'm a mom of two beautiful boys, and I'm a wife. Actually, we celebrate our wedding on the 17th of February. So we always do like you know, um, Valentine's, it's like a dinner that's celebrating all things, let's just say. And
Nice.
have been living for 15 years in the southern state of Mexico called Chiapas, but now I am back in the hometown where I grew up, Calgary, Alberta, Canada. And so we've kind of had a big transition and a lot of changes and adaptation, and it feels really good. And yeah, we're excited for this next chapter in our northern family node.
Absolutely. And speaking of chapters, with this new book that came out, could you tell us like the title of it and what inspired you to write this? Because this is your second book, right?
Yeah, I mean, this is my memoir. It's like part memoir, part map for women who truly want to get healthy for good. The title is Marinating in Chaos.
I love that.
Live intuitively and make bold, authentic decisions. So the subtext is there's multiple types of chaos that I've personally managed over the years, and it gives I'm speaking definitely to women, but I've had some very lovely comments from men in my world that have read it as well. And takes these lessons and shows you how it has become a part of my philosophy in the wellness space and as a leader in the industry, and really just gives you the tools, because let's face it, we're all living in some sort of chaos. I would argue the multiple futures that we're facing are going to be chaotic, and it's an increasing speed and velocity that's the reality.
Yeah.
So these tools are ever relevant, I think.
That's important because things are changing really quickly. And I know I keep saying in different conversations that I'm having that I think we're all going to be really forced to examine our attachment to our identities and everything else and really elevate our consciousness in ways that we haven't done before.
Yeah, and I think it goes back to a lot of the work that you do, really just empowering people to focus on where they have agency
Mhm.
and a practice to just let the rest go. You know,
Yeah,
have like a mindful management of, if you will, of all the things that you really can't control.
absolutely. So in some of the things that you talk about how you identify as being like a highly sensitive person or HSP. And so how does that fall when we're trying to like deal with the chaos and everything else? Like, how does that shape your like wellness coaching philosophy or the way that you handle things?
Yeah, I think whether or not I mean, you can read that book. It's a great read, but whether or not you identify with the person in the room that's always like sensing the little noise or that smells the thing first, or is more susceptible to the tiny light on the radio clock, like not allowing you to sleep in a hotel room. Yeah. So, I mean, I feel like I'm surrounded already just naturally by a lot of these people. And I don't remember what the statistics are, but there's definitely more women that fall into this category for obvious reasons, which we
Mhm.
can go into. But um, I think it's comes back to embracing these things that have been positioned to us from the status quo as a weakness, and actually reframe and consider, what if this is actually one of my superpowers in managing all the things in my world and really staying super hyper self-conscious, which I think is your main tool to
Sure.
understanding how things are affecting you personally and how you can manage them, whether you want to bring them in deeper and really embrace that thing, or you want to be like, yeah, I see that external thing happening in my environment, and just letting it go.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think there's so many things that are better, obviously, when we can reframe them as a superpower. And also, they have these elements to them that can feel really challenging. So, like, how would you recommend somebody create more of that like emotional resilience to be able to like pull through some more of the positive and cultivate that as they navigate chaos?
Yeah, well, I think one really powerful tool that I know that you advocate as well is to develop some sort of mindful practice, which
Sure.
is a daily practice. It doesn't need to be meditation. It could be breath work, could be tapping, just something that allows you to get quiet
Mhm.
and get observant of your interior, of what's going on. And it really informs you over time. In the moment, sure, when you're doing those practices, but I think where it's more powerful is when you're out in your daily life. It just grants you that pause and a different perspective on how you're going to manage the situation or approach it or respond, instead of react. And it just gives you choices. It gives you, in those really stressful moments, wait, I have agency here. I can decide how to react. I can decide if this is going to turn my day or my week or my year from good to bad.
Yeah.
And also, amongst or amidst all of this chaos or stress, I can also just decide that I'm going to be content. I'm going to be happy. I'm going to do something that brings me joy.
Mm, I like that. I like just like let that settle in because I think too often we forget that we have choices, and we forget that we have that agency. And like that simplest reminder and like bringing yourself back to that can make such a huge difference for people. So thank you for reminding us of that. So like what are some of the most common challenges that you see coming in with your clients?
Yeah, well, I work mostly with female founders in tech. So I think just bringing in some sort of mindfulness about everything that's coming at them, because I mean, in the startup space, it's sort of like a hyper stressful pace, if you will, very demanding, which, I mean, we can get into that, but I think that is changing. More and more women coming into the space are informing, hey, there's multiple ways to build a startup, and it doesn't have to be at the sort of like traditional hustle culture pace. But bringing in foundational tools is so key. So we're focusing on nutrition still. Sleep, I would argue, is your number one overall
Mhm.
well-being tool. Like,
Yes.
prioritize your sleep and quality sleep, and then some sort of movement, and get creative and fun. And again, I think that's a really great place to bring joy into your life, because our
Yeah.
bodies are designed to move. So I mean, a lot of women are kind of allergic to the word exercise after all these years, or, not all of them, but some of them are happily running marathons and stuff.
Right.
If you don't identify as an athlete, like, what are the ways that you can move your body in a really profound way that feels integrated to who you are, but then also brings you this momentum? And of course, it's a tool for stress relief. It's a tool for
Yeah.
creativity. It's a tool for improving your digestion and your immunity and like all of these things. And
I
then
can't
really,
imagine how grumpy I would be if I didn't move my body and exercise. Like, I think I would be a ball of stress.
yeah, like sometimes I go without a day, and that's basically I could just immediately feel it. And I mean,
Mhm.
I've gotten back into yoga now that I'm back where I mean, there were studios where I was, but hot yoga studio, I guess that's how I'm bringing in the tropics in my life here in the Canadian North is the hot yoga.
Yeah, well, because you
Uh,
said it's been what, like negative 20 something Celsius where you are, so some hot yoga
yeah, and
sounds
so
really delightful.
the studio's at like 36, and everyone's just sweating buckets, and I'm like, this feels great. Um, so yeah, I think just being really intentional about what your non-negotiables are, and in my sphere, it's really giving women permission to decide, like, what are your non-negotiables, and just let the rest go. Because I think, to get back to your question, the overwhelm of too much information, too many trends, like so
Way too
many
much information.
options, like we're just overwhelmed with choices.
Hmm.
And at the same time, I feel like so many people are not really making any choice, or the right choice, or really allowing themselves to be like, I see that that's working for this individual, or my best friend, or my mother. And I fully embrace that that's not for me. Like, I'm going to do this thing over here, and
Yeah,
that's enough. It's,
absolutely.
it's doing less, and just choosing what's fully aligns with who you are, and it becomes more powerful over time.
For sure. I'd love to hear more about, the passion that you've developed over the last few years with female founders in tech and how that came about and what your involvement there is like and everything else.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think the first tiny thread is I just had a few clients that happened to be in that space. And over time, I just got more interested in the space, and became, well, educated myself on how to become an impact angel investor. And I have done that and made several investments in the tech sphere. And I'm just really passionate about supporting women who are building businesses that have a triple bottom line. So they're interested in profit, but they're also interested in planet and people. How are these? They're building better futures, essentially. And to me, it's the most powerful way that I can influence the future is by being the cheerleaders of these incredible women that are building, not necessarily billion-dollar companies, but they're building new tech in areas like femtech, future of work, health tech, fintech, like things that are really going to affect our futures. But of course, as a mother, the futures of my children, and their children, and their children's children's.
Yeah, that feels important. It feels aligned, and that's awesome. So, with that in mind, how did that feed into the recent book that you wrote also? Like, was that an important part of that for you?
I'd say this book kind of ends like just as I'm discovering.
Okay.
So I mean, yes and no. I think what these women, or I would argue like female entrepreneurs in general, are really good at is zeitgeist. Like they're good at big picture thinking and seeing what other people don't see yet, or what like society in general doesn't quite accept as what's coming down at us in our, I always say futures with an S. I think it's really powerful to just accept like there's not one future. We're
Yeah.
back to the options, right? Like there's going to be multiple paths. And uh I think it's a general tool that we as women have. We're naturally more empathetic, which is kind of like another way of seeing zeitgeist. Like we are so good at being intuitive and reading the room, and this is what makes us incredible business women and business leaders. And especially when we fully lean into that, opposed to feeling like that's sort of like weakness on our resume.
Mm. Yeah, it's just such a strength. It's interesting though, because so many people do still feel that way about it. So changing that's important. And I love how you say futures instead of future. And I think there's some different like societal myths and things to kind of unweave there that are important for like the collective impact. So you talk about like being a shapeshifter. So, what does it mean to be a shapeshifter in today's world to you? And like, how can that be an advantage rather than a limitation?
Yeah, I mean, I think it goes back to again, just embracing how that helps you just be more tolerant or comfortable in the chaos. Like back to everything that I was saying, like being sort of having this broader vision and big picture thinking, you're okay and understand that there's always all these unknowns.
Mhm.
And that doesn't mean that you need to feel like on a nervous system level unsafe.
Yeah.
And it's fine. It's like developing, cultivating this sense of internal safety amongst the chaos. And so I think being a shapeshifter, it's like, yeah, it's defining yourself and your identity as a context, not as a content. So instead of really feeling like you are this, and I loved you off the top, you said identities. Like I think that is also the future and the future of our children. It's multiple identities and feeling like that's not a stressful process to shapeshift into one or the other, depending on, yeah. And I
Yeah.
mean, similarly, I
None of
think,
them are who we are anyway.
yeah. And I mean, you and I even, and even in this generation, like we have multiple careers at the same time.
Mhm.
And that's the reality of our children. Like, not only are they going to have multiple careers in their lifetime, they're going to be doing multiple careers at the same time. And I think it's just all about understanding and being comfortable in different environments and not letting like your, yeah, any one identity define you. It's like who is, there's like an essence of who you are that's behind all these identities, and it's getting really comfortable with who that is.
Yeah, for sure. I love that. Kind of like that common thread that runs through all of it. Um, Maybe that's, like soul or like the heart of who we are. That's going to be present in everything if we're authentic and genuine in the way that we're presenting ourselves, which is a whole other thing because I feel like our authenticity has been challenged our entire life because so many of us were raised in societal conditions where we were taught to be like less than, like, to play things down, to be
Dial
small,
it down, yeah.
to not totally express ourselves. So then it's like, how do we even know how to be authentic when we're adults and to like have that essence and have that heart if like the conditioning has been there, that's a lot of things that I see, I guess, in the work that I do. Do you notice that
Yeah,
too?
it's unraveling that good girl brainwashing that we
Sure.
all grew up with. And I like to talk about it being like whatever you consider the status quo that you were presented with, like it was actually never for you.
Mhm.
Was never for us. It was to control us. And I think female entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs in general, like really already understand that. It's like, oh, I see this, very safe and boring 9 to 5. And I'm going to run the other way and do the big, uh, scarier, riskier thing that makes me or allows me to express my authentic self more fully.
Yeah. Yeah, because the other feels so much like a lie. And I guess a lot of this stuff probably comes through too in wellness, which is like your main field, these kind of like lies and myths and things. What are some of like the most like misleading wellness myths that you feel like you've encountered?
Good question. Well, I think it comes back to like no amount of kale is going to solve that you either on some level hate yourself or hate your job or, need to get out of your marriage
Not about
or
the kale, people.
it's not about the kale. Like I highly recommend you have some kale in your life. And also, like, there's so many more layers. And yeah, I mean, I think you really have to understand your relationship with everything in your environment and get really clear and picky
Mhm.
about what you want to focus on, what you want to allow into your space, whether that be energetically or, who are you allowing to help you define your potential or who you are or what your values are. So I think there's so many levels. I focus on sure the physical, which is kind of the pillars we talked about before in terms of nutrition and sleep and movement.
Mhm.
Uh, the emotional, which goes to all those relationships. How are the relationships in your life, and then of course how's the relationship with yourself, the mental, which is really like the capacity you have to manage stress and understand, the good stress from the bad stress, like what's helping me grow versus what's just energetically draining me or pulling me down. And then, you and I really bond on the spiritual piece, which can be brought in and defined and created in so many different ways. It can be everything from art to some sort of mindful practice to whatever your spiritual or religious beliefs might be, and really just, and I think all of that kind of comes back to this natural intuition, empathy, like these soft skills that women have always had, trusting in them more and
Mhm.
knowing that it's our power that we are better at seeing the science and the data, if you will, and then also trusting our gut feelings and blending those two things when we're making decisions.
Yeah, especially if we're making those bold, authentic decisions.
Exactly. Hopefully they get bolder and bigger as you trust that inner feeling on a
Yeah.
deeper level.
So as you're working with all of these like women founders and tech and everything else, what do you feel is the importance of like self-care for leadership and for creativity? Like what are like the non-negotiables there?
Yeah. Well, I mean, as a leader and really, I mean, you've even mothers, you're like leading a household, right? Entrepreneur, like you are the company, at least the very beginning, and then eventually you're leading a team, and your team is so important. And there's like the team that you have that is people of working for you, but I think it's also so important from a leadership perspective of thinking of who are your like five core people that you look up to as your high vibe five or whatever you want to call them, like really being clear on who you're drawing energy and inspiration from, and hopefully they are at your level or a little bit above, like they're aspirational influences on your life. And then I think it really comes down to getting really good at time blocking on your calendar, really understanding like where are you prioritizing yourself? Because
Mhm.
again, you are the business. So if you're not in optimal well-being, then neither will your business. And ultimately, I'm so passionate about helping women have the legacy impact that they want, but without the burnout. So it's
Yep,
understanding that building a business is a marathon. It's like a series of sprints in a marathon. And like a marathon or like birthing babies or birthing a company, you want to be in the best shape of your life.
absolutely. I'm a huge proponent of like the morning routine being like all about me. I think
Yeah.
like because once I jump into my workday, I'm probably not jumping out of it very easily. I've gotten better at like taking a midday break to take a walk and things like that, but like I always try to like get like a great workout in first thing, get a bunch of water in, like set things up with a good breakfast, like all of that. And I guess I see too often like what you're talking about, people that aren't time blocking and not like putting themselves on there first. Like it's such this novel idea, but wouldn't you agree? Like you need to put your blocks of time for taking care of you on there before you fill in the other things. Hey, before we continue with the episode, one quick question. Have you joined the Becoming More Me community on School? If yes, I'm so grateful for you. And if no, what are you waiting for? I have an amazing free community that houses over $15,000 worth of my most requested resources, things you can start digging into and using today, actionable resources to start changing how you feel and show up in your life. Things that are going to support you on your never-ending journey of becoming, and amazing community members to support you as well. Hop over to skool.com. That's SKOOL.com/discovery and put my name in the search bar, Teresa Lear Levine. You will see the Becoming More Me community pop right up, and you can request to join from there. Inside of the community, you will find a full classroom of resources, as well as anything that you need in order to join my small group coaching or my one-on-one coaching. And I can't wait to see you over there. Again, go to www.skool.com/discovery, type in my name, Teresa Lear Levine, and request to join the Becoming More Me community. I can't wait to see you there.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm sure this, like, if it's not on my calendar, it's not happening. Like, I am also, especially if it's like a new habit that you're trying to install, right? You and I are pretty solid in having a morning routine. And so, I don't have morning routine from 5 to 6 a.m. on my calendar. I just set my
Yeah.
alarm and happily get up at 5:05 and just enjoy the silence that is the house before everybody else gets up. And, I read and journal and meditate. Maybe I'm listening to music, maybe I'm moving my body. Like, I really just allow myself to pull from a menu of things that I know elevate my energy and focus throughout the day, and ground me in my why and my purpose. And I think that is probably one of the most powerful tools. And then, also, like, how are we getting sleep? So I'll give you another example with a current client who, her and her husband have completely different schedules. And ultimately, and I feel like this is so common. Like, as women, we bend our sleep schedules so that we can, of course, spend time with our partner based on their schedule. And I positioned to her, okay, is there somewhere that you can sleep on your own 3 days a week? So 3 days a week, you are prioritizing your sleep, and, like, watch how powerful the level of deep work and productivity that you're going to get done on those 3 mornings when you have had the best night sleep of your life. And sure enough, like, life changing for her.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to talk more about sleep and also about like the schedules with partners. I guess I feel pretty lucky because I wake up with my husband in the morning, almost every morning. We pretty much wake up out of bed by like 4:15 every morning. We work out together. We do stuff before he goes to work and before I go to work. So we're both also naturally like ready to go to bed between like 8 and 9 at night. Like it's like,
Yeah, same
okay,
thing.
we're good. But I know a lot of people don't have that. And, they're waking up at different times or going to sleep at different times. And that can be like, I can only imagine that's really challenging. I know I have several clients right now that like that's like the big argument or the big thing where they have like the resentment towards the other one or whatever else because they're feeling, oh, I got to stay up, or like he likes to watch TV and I can't stand the light being on in the room. So then either he has to go watch it somewhere else or I have to go sleep on the couch or I'm miserable or yeah, any any tips there?
Yeah, I think it just comes down to, again, agency and understanding, like, no one's going to take control of your life. That's you. So, and nothing's all or nothing. Like, stop it neither has to be all the time X or all the time Y. No,
I love
like
that.
prioritize the couplehood and your relationship, whatever it is. My client started with 1 day a week. I positioned the three. She started, now she's at three, but that's also another path in there. It's like just because you, with all of the
Prioritize it, but
wellness.
not at the expense of your own health and your own sleep.
Exactly. And like all wellness tools, I think you have to try them on. So if you try 1 day a week and it's life changing, obviously you then have proof of concept for yourself and your lifestyle that it's
Mhm.
worth considering like building that in a little bit more and just find the balance. And then of course, like the flip side of this is, especially if you're in a long-term relationship, 3 days a week, you're out of the relationship, if you will, or like having, like single sleeping and all the benefits of that, getting to stretch out further on the bed and like all the things and having the bedroom like the exact temperature you want and the lights, etc. And 4 days a week, like you're building in that little bit of spark of ability to miss your partner. So it's just more fiery when you're with them, and the quality of time. Yeah, I think it's so hard for us to get out of that sticky energy of like, I'm stuck in this situation. It's like, no,
Mhm.
you're not. You can build out this priority for you, and it's actually going to make this other part better
Mhm.
instead of this. Um, it's just not true that
Yeah.
it's not.
You can have all the identities.
Yes.
Yes. You can have the single solo sleeping identity and the married sleeping together identity, and you can have it all. Yes, I love that. That it all really does all tie together. In this stage for me, and I'd say always bring it up any expert that comes on because it's like I'm just always looking for the tips at this point. Perimenopause, sleep. I'm like I feel kind of fucked half the time. So it's like
Oh, good. I
what
wasn't sure if we could
great
swear or not. I was trying to avoid it.
you can swear, but especially when it comes to this. So it's like I had hot flashes like a year and a half ago, and then I balanced some things out. It felt like and didn't have them. Now they're back, and they're like messing with the sleep, and even like temperature during the day and everything else. Any tips there, wellness wise?
Yeah, I mean, it's probably a really unpopular one, but the biggest thing that you can do is reconsider your relationship with alcohol. Although I'm not sure that you drink?
I don't have much of one. I'm like
Yeah. So
I might drink like
I
once
think
a
like
month,
that
drink or
is
two a
like
month.
that is the first step. So if you have like an evening wine routine,
Yep.
get rid of that.
Yeah.
Just try it for a week and just notice the quality of your sleep and your hormones basically, because alcohol is directly related to our hormones.
Absolutely.
So
So I think that would definitely help a lot of listeners. For me, it's like I already have that correlation. Like I said, I drink like once or twice a month, and I do notice my sleep is extra shitty if I drink. So it's like even more incentive to not do it. It's like the reminder of like, oh yeah, that's why I don't really do this much, So yeah, I get that one.
okay. And then, I mean, I'm sure you're nailing nutrition as well, but I think another piece that a lot of women aren't necessarily hearing is it's really important that you're getting enough protein at this phase. I would argue, along with that, that you're doesn't need to be daily, even like 3 times a week, twice a week. You're lifting some weights or you're doing something that's really maintaining your muscle at the very least, if not building muscle. It's pretty hard to build muscle at this phase. It's more like maintaining it. And I just know that the stronger I feel physically, stronger I feel mentally. And I think it's so worth it. But then it also really helps protect us in this phase. Another tip is just understanding your digestion and your what's called your biorhythms,
Mhm.
and understanding what's the ideal time of day that is your last meal, the last time you're eating. So ideally you're completely satiated, you've eaten enough healthy fats and protein, and you feel and carbs. This is the other piece. Like women, I think are not I think I know have received this message for, like since the diet years of my mother, that carbs are the enemy. And no, it's the quality
So
of carbs.
yeah.
What kind of carbs are you eating? You need carbs for serotonin
Mhm.
production to be in a good mood, and ultimately also supporting your ability to sleep. So yeah, tell me more about, is the sleep just interrupted? It's hard to get to sleep.
Yeah,
What's
I
what
normally sleep
time
like
change
really
sleep? What do
well
you
for
need?
like the first like 4 to 6 hours. And usually 6 to 8 hours is like my optimal amount of sleep. I if I go to bed at 8 or 9, I know and I'm up at 4. It's usually like 9 to 4. So it's like 7 hours. And that's like perfect. Like my brain functions great on that. When I get more, I'm lethargic. When I get less, don't love it. Don't do good on less sleep. But yeah, I'm usually like an hour or so before I want to get up. I have a hard time sleeping.
Yeah. So, I mean,
And
and you're
that's
not,
usually why I notice my body temperature fluctuating a lot more and like, oh, throwing off the sheets, putting on the sheets, like that kind of stuff. And then like the mind turns on and it's all over.
yeah. Well, I mean, every woman is different. So I think it's important to definitely also, I criticize what's considered like traditional medicine, which is, modern medicine. However, definitely get all of your hormones measured and really understand like what's going on, and if there is hormone replacement therapy that is, because this is what is a real misnomer in the space is, you don't want to be taking hormonal replacement therapy when you're in menopause. You want to take it in peri. It's a preventative thing. So if that's something that you're open to considering, definitely find a good, I would argue, female doctor to discuss that with. And I highly recommend Dr. Lisa Mosconi's book, Menopause Brain. I
Okay.
think it should be required reading for,
I haven't read that one yet.
17 years on, because it really gave me like so much insight into my post, because she talks about the 3 Ps. So it's your brain post puberty, post yeah, pregnancy, and perimenopause. And so really understanding that our brains are going through this kind of pruning phase and optimizing for the next phase of life. And what's happening in the perimenopause is we actually have 5 different types of estrogen. In Spanish, you always say estrogens, but in English we say estrogen like it's one. But there's 5 different types and qualities, and really understanding like that our brain is trying to adapt to existing off a different type of estrogen than it has previous to perimenopause. So I think, yeah, and then more on a you know practical standpoint. I mean, I think all of this is great information and like to have for you personally to see what your individual tools are. And then yeah, I mean, I would consider taking ashwagandha before bed if you're not already doing that. I would
For bed.
consider
So the timing on that one's important later in the day.
ashwagandha.
Mhm. Okay,
Yeah,
that's
I would say it's generally like just a calming, taking the edge off. Um, and yeah, I think you can use it either way. Like it's not going to interrupt your sleep. And there's actually a lot of what's it called? Like golden milk recipes. I don't know if you know that is like an Ayurvedic tool. A lot of them that you can get even on Amazon have ashwagandha in it. So
okay.
that's something you consider. And then I would just like, what's so important when you're waking up at that hour, it depends on like how awake, and if are you being woken by like your to-do list and stress? Like is cortisol
No,
waking?
I feel like I'm either woken because I'm like having a hot flash or like I need to pee. Like
Yeah.
one or the
Okay. So
other.
the need to
So I get
pee
up, I
is
go to the bathroom, I get back in bed, and then I'm still feeling like very like I could go back to sleep. I just don't usually very easily, or it's like not great rest.
okay. So I mean, first be really conscious about the last liquids that you're taking in your day to really give your body the opportunity to 8 hours without having to go pee. So sleepy teas, do not recommend sleepy teas. If you're doing the Ayurvedic golden milk, which I love, like do that a couple hours before you're going to bed, go to the bathroom, and then go to bed. I would also consider having like a silk mask, and then just putting in a guided meditation or a yoga nidra, which is just like a inch by inch guided relaxation of your body.
I'm only
And
laughing because all of your suggestions are things like I totally do. So like
you're
please
like, it's
don't
not
be considering
working.
it. It does. does. I love it. I absolutely love a great like yoga nidra playlist that I turn to. And sometimes I drift off to them and sometimes I just enjoy relaxing to them. Either way, I mean, I do feel like there's definitely a good nervous system reset quality to using something like that. Even if I don't.
Yeah, like I think it's a very passive way to do a mindful thing for yourself.
Mhm.
And instead feel like, oh, I'm losing, like it's the stress that enters that you're losing sleep. And then,
I've gotten over that. That's an old mindset that I definitely used to have back in the day, where it was like, you're counting the hours or whatever else, and you feeling all like,
well, and
oh,
all all the tech and all the apps that are like giving you this, yellow flag, red flag. And it's like, okay, I mean, we can talk about that. I'm using this weight loss one right now, and it's giving me like an ideal weight that like never in my life, even at 17, I've never been that weight. And I was saying to the doctor, I'm like, I would have to lose muscle. I would have to lose muscle to be this. I would be skeletal. It's like 10 pounds less than I've ever weighed in my entire life, even like running a
Yeah,
marathon.
that's not a fun number to see every day when you're looking at an app, realizing
Exactly.
it's
Well,
not
I think
attainable and it's not even what you want.
exactly. So I think it's so important, especially we'll go back to the sleep. Like you have to have some sort of internal sense of self and agency around these things and know like, yeah, I see that the data is saying this, but that's not how I feel. And trusting and weighing like where you're going to lead with intuition.
Hmm.
Um, and maybe you take a break from the app for a while or the tech and really just figure out like how are you defining the quality of your sleep?
Hmm. Yeah, I actually don't use any apps for my sleep. And yeah, but I do know that like that 2 to 3 a.m. hour, usually I'll find myself up and it's questionable whether I get back to sleep or not. So yeah, but I do think that has a lot to do with like this perimenopausal hot flashy stage. So I'm just trying to figure out the best way to ride that one out. I was using a supplement last year that was really helping, but it's not working this time. So I
I
guess
have a
that's the
couple
change
others that I'll
again.
take pictures of them and send them to you. If you want to like pop them into the show notes, you can. But and I think magnesium, like definitely be making sure like you're eating well, of course, first. And then if you really are in a position to not be eating well, that you're having like some sort of multivitamin. I generally would be really cautious with like CBD gummies. I would be cautious with um, melatonin. Like these are all things that you're like really kind of changing things or manipulating things in a way that could have lasting negative effects that you don't want.
Hey, let's take a quick break from the episode and chat about the Becoming More Me signature program. Because the truth is, we can digest information and learning all day long, whether it's podcasts, books, audiobooks, courses. But ask yourself if it's really changing the way that you're showing up in your life. I know that for me, I felt like a collector of information for a very long time, and it wasn't until I started implementing nourishment of my nervous system and rewiring of my subconscious that I felt like I could really leverage that information to show up differently in my life. And that's why I created the Becoming More Me signature program, which allows me to work with clients in both one-on-one and group settings so that they can start showing up differently in their lives and actually creating and manifesting their desired outcomes like never before. If this is something that sounds even remotely interesting to you, I invite you to hop on a call where we're not even going to talk about you joining the program. We're just going to talk about you, and we're going to talk about what it is that you want out of your life and business right now. And I'm going to offer you some free, no strings insights on how you can start making those changes. And we'll take things from there, but it's always good to start with getting to know each other. So if that sounds interesting to you, and if the idea of perhaps looking further into a program like this might appeal to you now or in the near future, then hop over to gamechangingconversation.com, book a time, and we'll get to know each other. And this will help you to understand if something like this is going to be right for you moving forward. And the worst case scenario is you're going to walk away from this call with several things you can start doing right away to start getting closer to the changes you desire the most. Now back to the episode. Yeah, for sure. Great advice. Thank you.
I feel
Um,
like I didn't solve your problem, so I'm
you,
not
you
doing
know what? It gave me some good things to think about, and yeah, I'm just kind of down the rabbit hole looking for what might make the difference this time because I do feel a little bit, I hate the word stuck, but a little bit like I've been trying all the things and doing them all right, air quotes, but still having not the best sleep. So, we'll just keep
Well,
digging.
the only other thing I'll suggest is just like fully getting up and reading a book, like a paper book, and maybe you'll get back to a deeper sleep.
Yeah.
And I feel like once if you like completely get up, then you get a sense of like whether there needs to be more sleep or you're just up early,
Right.
like
Yeah.
piece a
Sometimes
day.
I think about like how Wayne Dyer used to always say that he would wake up in the 3 a.m. hour to write. Like it was when inspiration would hit. And that's oftentimes a lot like what it feels like. It's like I don't feel tired. I don't feel like I'm like, okay, I could get up for the day, but it's like, could I really? Because I've had like 4.5 to 6 hours of sleep. Like I probably should stay in bed a little longer. So, a little bit
Yeah,
of
I
a
mean, spiritually,
spinning
it's a
going
very
on.
potent hour to do some work. But
Yeah, or it feels like,
I
gosh, I
would
already like my alarm already goes off at 4 a.m. Like, isn't
I
that
was
really
gonna say
enough?
that's
Do I
insane.
really need to like get up earlier than that?
Yeah, I think you should try and figure out how to get to 7 or a consistent 6. Like you can't exist long term on 4, not at all.
Oh no, no, I'm getting way more than four. Don't worry about me.
Okay, okay.
It's just it's usually like somewhere in that like four to
Like
six.
I
I'm
basically feel hungover if I have to
Oh
exist
yeah, yeah, it's a
for
horrible
4 hours.
feeling. I do not do well on less sleep than that for any period of multiple days. So yeah. All right. Well, what else would you like us to know? What else, other closing thoughts or things are feeling important to you to talk about before we wrap up this episode?
Yeah, well, I think it's just so important, particularly as women, to consider, how influential we are in shaping futures for ourselves, for our families, and the generations to come. And I really feel like it is a moment that the cost of starting a business, of being an entrepreneur is lower than it's ever been. And
Mhm.
this is one of the reasons why we have so many women, exiting high leadership corporate positions, being like, I do not need to work for this guy for another 10, 20 years when like I could do a consulting version of this on my own, or I could build
Right.
tech that does this even better. So just encouraging you to lean in as a woman into intuition, your ability to trust like our superpower that is empathy, to read the room, to have this like big picture thinking of what's coming, and just this internal sense of trust that something's off in a given situation. And yeah, just see where it leads you. I mean, I'm so excited about ultimately getting more capital in the hands of women. We tend
Yeah.
to build businesses that are productive and improve society, and instead of taking away from it, and make people's lives better. And ultimately, we tend to give a lot of our profits back to things that are important as well.
Yeah. All good things. I love that. Everybody, go out and get yourself a copy of Marinating in Chaos. Live intuitively and make bold, authentic decisions. I'm assuming we can get that on Amazon, Megan?
You can. It's on Amazon.
Amazing. And thank you so much for being here and sharing all of your wisdom and conversation with us today. And to all of you who are listening, I know you have so many choices when it comes to podcasts you listen to. So thank you for listening to Becoming More Me. Thanks for spending some of your precious time with me today. If you loved this episode, please leave a review or simply share it with someone else who would get great benefit from it too. If you share on social media, please tag me so I can personally connect and thank you. Until next time, keep taking bold and brave steps towards becoming more of who you want to be in this world. You are capable, you are worthy, and you are enough. And if your inner critic is still trying to argue with those facts, hit me up. We've got work to do.